Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Racing the Races. So we are back with racing at Cheltenham, which is awesome. I do like my national hunt racing. I do prefer it over the jump racing, and I do obviously we love racing at Cheltenham. I do like Newbury. Not as much of a fan at Ascot, to be honest. Sandown, I like Sandown. I've been there quite a few times. I do like that race course, but definitely like Cheltenham. I'm sure we all like Cheltenham if you're interested in national hunt racing. Don't forget, tomorrow it's Friday, which means it's free ratings day, so everybody can see the ratings. All we've got to do is come onto the Rating the Races website, go to the web ratings, and you will see the ratings looking just like you can see on my screen here. If you can't get a free account, log in, use this 3 buttons in the top left hand corner, which is actually called a hamburger. Click on that, and then click on web ratings, and you'll be taken to the first race of... This was today, where we actually had a lovely top-rated winner. Let's go to tomorrow. Here we go. The first race tomorrow is actually at Newbury, but we're just going to be focusing on the racing at Cheltenham. Starting off with the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. Now, I have actually already highlighted quite a lot of these to Premium and Pro members. I sent you an email yesterday, and I've also done the same for Saturday, sent you the email today to Premium and Pro members. So they already know pretty much all of these, who I like, and the reasons. So if they do agree, they've been able to get potentially better prices, and that's probably the way we're going to do it this season. Is Premium and Pro members are going to get an email about the selections earlier than the free members, obviously getting to hear this video. Granted, there could be further selections in the video, but yeah, let's go through tomorrow's racing then. So, starting off with that 2.5 mile handicap hurdle at Cheltenham. And the horse that I really like this horse, to be fair. Navajo Indy. Very lightly raced. Has only had I'm just counting them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 runs. Only had the 11 runs, 4 wins, 2 seconds and 3 thirds. So in 9 of his 11 runs, he's finished in the top 3. Always looks progressive, and last season actually ran in 2 handicaps in January, the Fitzstairs Sovereign Handicap Hurdle at Windsor, finished 4th when being badly outpaced over the 2 mile trip. Then went to Newbury for the William Hill Hurdle, the feature handicap hurdle at Newbury in February, again badly outpaced, held up out the back, outpaced 4 out, headway last, went 3rd on the flat, staying on all the way to the finish. Over 2.5 mile, I think Navajo Indy would have gone very close. This is 2.5 miles. This is a much easier 2.5 mile race, in my opinion, as well, in comparison to that William Hill Hurdle. If the horse had had a run and was coming here on its second run, having finished, 3rd or 4th over 2 mile, for example, Navajo Indy would be a really short price favourite here. Navajo Indy would be 5-2, 3-1 sort of price. It's all about, is this the target, or are they looking at something further down the line over 2.5 mile? If we actually look at the current odds for tomorrow, let's have a look. Get rid of that. We can see that Navajo Indy is available at 6-1. I think that's a fair price. I do. I think that is a fair price. As I said, if this had been after a run, it would be 5-2, 3-1, because it's unlikely to be running in a second race that wasn't the target. Friendship is definitely one of the dangers. The joint favourite, or the one that's potentially going to go off favourite. We can actually see that I nagged me Friendship, and if we click on it, I can see what I put. Got too far behind. We'll win on second start over hurdles. So that was a little while ago. The horse did actually come out and win a second time out over hurdles, albeit at a very 11-10. So I don't even know if I can't remember if I actually backed the horse that day. That horse was eye-catching in the Silver Trophy at Chepstow recently, has had the run therefore, was still going quite well at 3 out when unseating. So Friendship definitely has fitness over our selection, Navajo Indy. However, I do think if they'd both had the run, Navajo Indy would be a shorter price. Navajo Indy is the better horse and will appreciate this trip. And yeah, I'm just hoping that the step up and trip suits Navajo Indy, brings out more improvement than what we can get out of French Ship, who I think is kind of... We already know what his level of ability is going to be over this trip, whereas I think Navajo Indy could be even more progressive and impressive than French Ship. The other horse that we're definitely going to be watching is Jazzy Matty. Looks very well handicapped. Not totally sure wants the step up and trip, to be fair, though. Or wants this trip. That 2 mile trip that he won the Grand Annual off back in March. That's all he needs. Not sure why they're going 2.5. Possibly trying to run him in lots of races this season, get his handicap mark back down, before turning up for like the County Hurdle or the Grand Annual again. So that's our first one. It's Navajo Indy, who's available at 6-1. Second race that we are going to look at is the Novices Chase over 2 miles. And the horse I do like here, I think he's going to be very progressive this season over fences, and that is Country Mile. Now, Country Mile's best bit of form came 3 runs ago, when winning a Novices Hurdle comfortably, really, really impressively, hard held, beating Wingman. And you're like, well, is that good form? Well, Wingman went to Nace and then finished 3rd in the Grade 1 there. Also finished 2nd in a 2 mile 6 race behind Final Demand, beating Jasmine DeVoe that day. Okay, disappointed a little bit in the Albert Bartlett, when going off 6-1 for the Albert Bartlett. So that horse went off 6-1 for the Albert Bartlett, and our selection here, Country Mile, beat Wingman comfortably at Cheltenham over the 2 mile trip. Returning to Cheltenham with that recent run under his belt when he was 2nd to Alnalam over fences. If we're going to see a superstar performance tomorrow, I can see it coming from Country Mile. And with that in mind, I'm really happy with the price. We load up the price, not even favourite, 5-2, King of Kingsfield, well, nearly favourite or joint favourites in a lot of places. On potential, in my opinion, Country Mile could again be much shorter than this. Could be 5-4 even money if we went purely on that beating of Wingman at Cheltenham. I think that's the key thing as well here. It was at Cheltenham, back to Cheltenham. I think he's going to take all of the beating. Yes, King of Kingsfield has some nice form. I don't rate it as highly as Country Mile's form when beating Wingman. Moving on to the 225 at Cheltenham. Now, I didn't put this one in my email, but I do have... I have found a selection in this race. And that horse that I like here is Norman Fletcher. On the basis that I went through a lot of these horses, couldn't find anything. Couldn't find anything that interested me. So, with that in mind, that brought me back to Norman Fletcher. Norman Fletcher actually ran in this race last year. Finished 2nd, went off 3-1 joint favourite that day. Finished 2nd, beaten 3/4 of a length by Impero. Off a mark of 120. This year, he's going to run off 123. With James keeping the ride. The Twiston Davis's horses are in good form. I think this is like... It might even be the plan. They went to Chepstow, disappointed there, finished 5th of 9 in the Welsh Champion Hurdle. But I wonder whether that wasn't the race for them, and actually they were looking at this Cheltenham race, and they just went to the Welsh Champion Hurdle as, let's see if he's good enough. He wasn't. This is probably an easier race. It's back to where he's ran well. It's off a very similar mark. He went off 3-1 joint favourite last year. If we have a look this year, he is available at 10s. He's a much bigger price. So I think that's a selection in that race, because as I said, I went through a lot of the others, couldn't really find the strong angle for any of them. But I feel there is one for Norman Fletcher at that price. So we then move on to the 3 o'clock which is a Grade 2 Novices Hurdle. If some of my talk does seem a bit disjointed, it is because I keep having to pause the video because my dog is trying to get, it looks like he's trying to get some treats, and I keep having to pause the video to stop him from getting them. So I may start to say something and then stop myself because I have to come back to the video and it's like, oh, that didn't sound like you finished that sentence. But I'll still get to the main points, I think. Anyway, so 3 o'clock, the Grade 2 Novices Hurdle, and the horse that I like here, bit of a strange one in a way. Fortune de Mer for the Skeltons. Actually turned up in the Champion Bumper last year, went off 20 to 1 for that. Didn't run amazing, finished 14th. There's a few things that really interested me about this horse. First of all, has won a bumper here, has won a listed bumper here, and was really, really impressive that day. Very similar to Country Mile. They had two of them run really impressive performances at Cheltenham. And I feel that they're making the right decision by bringing them both back for races at Cheltenham. Now, Fortune de Mer, again, also follows Country Mile in that he's had a run. Fortune de Mer had a run just 19 days ago in a maiden hurdle. Didn't run particularly well, didn't appear to run particularly well, finishing third behind Top Timmy. That doesn't look amazing. Went off 6 to 5 favourite that day, looked outpaced on the run-in. Might have just needed the run though. Maybe they were getting both of those two fit, Country Mile and Fortune de Mer, to run big races at Cheltenham tomorrow, and I think they've got a couple on Saturday that I think could run well as well. Why would you finish third in a maiden hurdle and then still be prepared to run in a Grade 2 Novices Hurdle just 19 days later? It doesn't make sense in the fact that if they thought, oh no, we need to win a maiden hurdle, we're clearly not that good, they wouldn't run him in the Grade 2. They're coming to the Grade 2. I still think he's I think he's a very nice horse. I think he's going to be very impressive this season. Whether it's tomorrow and whether he can beat that how do we say this name? The horse is Un Sens à la Vie. I think that's how you say it. Whether he can beat him, I'm not sure. But I think at the prices I want to find out, at threes, maybe 100 to 30 in places, definitely at 3 to 1 for Fortune de Mer. He's the one I'm interested in because if he reproduces that Cheltenham run from November of last year, having had the run a few weeks before at Cheltenham, then he could be as good, if not better, than Un Sens à la Vie. As I said, he had the run previously. He hadn't had the run at Uttoxeter, has had that fitness run now. He hadn't had the run at Cheltenham in October last year, had that fitness run, came in the November meeting and was a very, very impressive winner. I think we might see a similar story tomorrow. We move on to the 3:35 at Cheltenham, and again, I think Dan Skelton might have... I think he knows what he's doing with this horse, and that horse is Calico. Now, Calico actually won this race last year. Off a mark of 138, beating Matata, who was getting £9 that day. Giving £9, sorry, that day. Tomorrow, actually gives 18. Gives more weight to Calico, despite being beaten on this meeting last year. I feel that's the key. Matata... If they raced again in November, Matata and Calico, I'd probably back Matata, particularly at the prices. But I think tomorrow, Calico fresh here, I think, is where we want to catch him. And it's not like his form completely tailed off. He did finish second last time out at Aintree. He'd finished third behind Brookie and En Public at Doncaster. His form wasn't bad at all. It's not like it completely fell apart. But I do feel that maybe getting him first time up this season again is where we want to catch him. Currently available at 3 to 1. I think he is the one to beat for the Skeltons. And finally, we move on to the final race that I want to talk about. I don't have a selection in the 410, but I do have one in the 445, the Amateur Jockeys Handicap Chase. And that horse is the Newest One. Now, the Newest One actually won this race last year. Ridden by Toby McCain-Mitchell that day, who was claiming 5 and was winning off a mark of 122, so 117 effectively. Tomorrow, the new one runs off a mark of 121. Amber takes 7 off, so is effectively running off 114. Potentially lower. £1 lower than actually winning the race in terms of if no jockey claims were taken into account anyway. £1 lower. I think this has probably been the target, hasn't it? To come back here. Again, there's so many here that with question marks. The horse does have some decent form at Cheltenham. Has also finished second previously under James Turner behind Buddy 1. That was another good performance. Has finished 5th in this race a few years ago. But that came off a higher mark. That was off a mark of, just checking on my other screen, 124. Gets to run off 121 tomorrow. Down to this sort of mark, I think that's key. And surely this has been the plan to come back to this race and try and win it again. What price can we get about that horse? Whoops. The Newest One is currently available and now being supported at 7-1. As always, never include those outlier prices, especially from Bet365, because you can't get those. But 7-1 is available at about the Newest One. Wouldn't surprise me if that horse goes off clear favourite. So they're my selections for Friday. Starting off with Navajo Indy in the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. I think the step up and trip will really suit. It's all about whether he's going to need that run or not. Country Mile and Fortune de Mer are very similar profiles in that they've both had their fitness runs. They both returned to the scene of their most impressive victories. And I think both of them are too big a price to ignore. I like Norman Fletcher, who returns to Cheltenham after finishing second in this race last year. I couldn't find angles on any of the others or any that I thought were really progressive or well handicapped. Norman Fletcher probably is. This has probably been the target for Norman Fletcher. We've also got Calico to return and I think will win the race again, the 2 mile handicap chase. As I said, if they ran this again in November as well and Calico and Matata were in the race, I would back Matata. And finally, as we just talked about, the Newest One back to Cheltenham to try and win that race again, I think will run a really big race here for Amber Jackson Fennell.